So welcome to today's session. This is all about a little lunchtime sort of learning masterclass, how you can skyrocket your authority and how to increase your visibility and leverage your expertise to grow you and your business. This is hosted by myself, Sabine Matharu, and the lovely Sam. How do you pronounce your name? No, we didn't do the Houghton. I'm not sure.
Let me just unmute. Houghton.
Houghton, okay.
Houghton, yeah.
Well, I never asked for your last name.
That's okay.
There we go. So, yeah, as I said, I just had a bit of a pre-intro in terms of my own story and the fact that I was for the longest time hiding in my business, and you know, sometimes you just don't feel comfortable with one area of or a media, for example. But I think we all know that as a matter of fact, we all need to somehow create this authority and create that visibility in our businesses, because otherwise, how will people know the amazing things that you're doing and how you can help them? So never forget, you know, some people say, well, actually, I don't want to be like a nuisance or, you know, annoy people or, you know, be too salesy and all that kind of stuff. And that's the thing. I don't think we can ever be too salesy if we, you know, go out with the energy of we want to serve people and we want to make sure that they know what you have got to offer. Okay, so always bear that in mind. It's always about serving first, you know, giving first, and like, for example, we're doing this free masterclass. You know, people might want to come and work with us later, absolutely, but they can also just watch this masterclass for free and get some great golden nuggets out of it. That's absolutely their choice, right? But we also know that a fraction of people might say, actually, I'd like to get some help here. And we know these people can help me do whatever it may be, right? Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, I have obviously, I think I kind of just said, why is visibility important? I think it is absolutely the lifeblood of every business. If you're not visible in one way or the other, you're not going to have any clients. They're not going to see what you're doing. And you could be visible, that's the other thing, but maybe you are not clearly articulating what you do and how you can help people and what the benefits will be to actually working with you. And maybe you're not clearly giving them a call to action. So it could be that you are, you know, posting every day and all that, but you're not really leaving them with anything that they now go and do, right? The now go and do thing is the call to action. The call to action may be join my Facebook group, join my email list, download this freebie, or, you know, let's get on a call if you need help with that. Yeah, so you want to always have some sort of call to action. Yeah, and I mean, you can be visible organically, and but that would take obviously your time and your energy to show up, to create content and reach out to people and all that kind of stuff. Or you can also leverage some of your time, and obviously there is the paid option, which is running some sort of ads on different platforms. The most famous ones are obviously Facebook ads. There's also ads on other platforms, Instagram and YouTube and Google and so on. So that's all helps with visibility. So here are a couple of different options, okay? And I'm sure there's many more options here. But the main ones are obviously you can be a speaker, you can speak from stage, okay, like in an event, but then you can also have your own stage and have an online stage basically. And that's what I actually started off with. I started off with my own online TV. I think it was then called, I can't remember, it was called Reach for Greatness with Sabine Matharu or something like this. That's like really old. And when I look at it now, it's like really old branding and all that. But it has evolved, and it got me started because I literally went into a Facebook group, say, hey, I'm doing this online TV show and I'd like to interview every week a few of you women and help you get visible too. And we can help each other and we can leverage each other's audiences, right? Because we were all then marketing each other. And then little did I know, in that particular Facebook group, all of a sudden I had about maybe 200 comments. And then I started to actually connect with these women, like all of these women. So got them on the show. And I think in 2018 alone, I think I started in April, until the end of that year, I ran about 50 shows, because I remember in December I actually did a daily show, which was like a bit of a marathon, where I had 5 women. I set myself up for 100 women in 21 days. So it was 21 days to Christmas, and I wanted to interview 100 women, which I did do. I did achieve that. So 5 women every day in one sort of slot kind of thing. So literally I had no formal training about how to be a online TV host, and I just started to call this myself, and all of a sudden I was an expert right away. But what did that do for me? Obviously it elevated my authority straight away, and then secondly, the women got to know me as well, as like, you know, we had great conversations, you know, and I helped them get visible. And then they started to know me as to what I'm doing and how potentially I could help them in their business. So what happened was that out of those women, I think about 50 or 60 that I interviewed became my clients, right? And that was quite natural, and it felt very, very easy. But obviously, if the online TV isn't your thing, and it is a lot of work, and there's a lot of things you might want to have to consider when you do that. Obviously, you need to show up live, and you have to have some of the technology ready, you know, because you have more than one person on your screen. There's obviously other ways you can be speaking, just you on a video. You don't have to interview people. You can obviously just show up and have your own weekly show. Of course, we all maybe do the odd, you know, live, like Facebook Live kind of thing. I guess the disadvantage with doing that without having a certain branding to a show or a certain time frame is the fact that it's very hard to build up the momentum and the audience. Because say you had like a weekly show, even if it was you, the weekly show, the, you know, your own weekly show, or on your own kind of thing, then you show up, and you know, if you have a Facebook group, for example, you say, well, my weekly show talk about X, Y, and Z, of course, obviously the benefits that you're helping, you know, your clients with, and the problems you solve, right? If you say it's always on a Monday at 1 p.m., for example, then people will know and they will come. Like, you know, like my networking event, we've had this on Thursdays at 2 p.m. And I know some women haven't, you know, they just know it's happening. I don't have to remind them anymore. So that's the great advantage. The other thing is the podcast. So I'm just looking into a podcast myself. Now, the thing I've now learned, it's a great tool, podcasting, and you're basically in somebody's ear. And you can, if you don't want to, if you're camera shy, that could be a great opportunity just to take a mic and record your episodes. Obviously, you need to know where to, you know, upload them and how to promote them. With everything we do here, we don't just produce content, we must promote content as well, because actually it should be only 20% producing stuff and 80% promoting, because at the end of the day, you know, we want to measure. We don't just want to have do this as a hobby. We want to actually create some real impact and you know, get some clients, generate some leads from the stuff that we put out there. So with the podcast, the only thing I want to say about the podcast is the fact that it's very intimate, and you can also get followers quite quickly through other platforms. But podcast people are very different to those that are actually on Facebook or on social media or reading blog. So they are different audiences. So don't think because you have a great audience on, you know, on another channel that they will automatically go and join, like be a follower on your podcast too. Podcasters seem to be different people. And there's also opportunities, again, with any of these things here, that you could be a guest on someone else's show, and so you can leverage someone else's audience too. But, you know, just make sure when you do pitch, make sure you do network with these people first and follow those people. You know, we call this influencer marketing. So this is one of the things I teach inside my program is the whole content creation for any of these channels, and then how to actually produce the content, how to package it up, and also how to then go about finding other influencers who can help you, you know, get yourself out there. And that's like really big growth. That's all I want to say about here. Obviously, this is more the spoken word, let's say. So not it's more like video. But then social media, you have blog posts as well, and we'll talk a bit more about the whole writing. That's where Sam is very good at. The written word. So obviously, written word, you have, of course, obviously social media has written word as well. The blog posts, the social media posts. Then there is blog, press, and books. So I'm just going to talk about blog and press, and then I'll hand over to Sam. Now, a blog is basically a section. It could be standalone. It's a website. So it's a section on your website which hosts longer articles. That's how I would classify a blog. And usually, if you know, very good blog writer, you have put quite a lot of time into researching that particular niche or the topic, to really give like some sort of solution and some action steps inside the blog. What I would say with blogs is, we need to make sure we share those blogs out on social media so people actually get there. It's not a case of putting up a blog or a website and people just find you miraculously. Unfortunately, it doesn't work unless your Google, your search engine optimization is so great, and everything with keywords and all that stuff, which is so super complicated, you know, it's optimized. But we do, with everything we do, we need to go and share this out. We need to syndicate that. Okay. Also, with the blog post, you want to have some sort of call to action, some button somewhere in between the text to say, hey, you know, I've actually created this checklist or this cheat sheet which correlates with exactly what I'm talking about here, and it'll help you, you know, solve this problem. You can download it here quickly, you know, so that you actually capture people's email addresses. Everything you do, you want to actually get them out of Facebook, out of a blog or wherever they are, and you want to actually start acquiring that data, because you know, Facebook, it doesn't belong to you. If you have built up a Facebook page with thousands of likes, or you have a Facebook group with thousands of people in there, yes, you can market to them, but say Facebook shuts you down tomorrow, you will have lost all the hard work. You don't want to do that. That's the reason why you want to actually create some sort of giveaway, some freebie that leads them to give you their email address and their name, and then you can actually continue that conversation on an email, because now the data is yours. Now you can really have proper conversations over email. There's things of course like messenger bots nowadays as well, where you can send updates and all that kind of stuff. But this is the thing, we need, you know, don't put all your eggs into one basket when it comes to generating leads from these different places. The press, so we there are obviously different things here. You could approach someone like a journalist who writes for some magazine, or you could do a press release, which I actually tend to do this for my clients when we do our book launches. I have a tool, or I'm part of a platform where you can actually send out a press release, which is an article which notifies, you know, the public that you've just launched something, and you have it like a wide distribution. I think it's around 400 online news sites. So you actually, your name and your link and your picture actually appears on large news sites. And that is great, because I've done this several times for my own business. And that just gives you that extra expert status as well, because you can screenshot that and say, hey, you know, I've appeared in this publication, right? So that's a press release. But when you work with journals and sort of get into sort of proper PR, that is more of a like long-term sort of relationship building. And, you know, you got to really be able to showcase, you know, your expertise, and also pitch to them in a way that actually is going to support their audience, rather than, hey, you know, I'd like to be I'd like to be visible, and, you know, can you write an article about me, kind of thing. So there's approaches there, and it's a big topic. So, but lastly, the books. So one of the things you know, most of you know about me is the fact that I woke up one morning and it was a case of go and write a book with 100 inspirational people who can, you know, who share their stories and want to have that platform of visibility. And I was very surprised. It was a really, really clear vision. I knew exactly how the books are going to look like. And I don't know if you can see that on a very small screen, but a couple of months later, the first 2 books appeared and were published as best-selling books globally. And they each have 25 stories of inspirational women. So there we have the 50 already. But I knew each of the chapters, how they want to look like, that it's going to be really colorful books, that we wanted to have some fun and really have a lot of inspirational pictures in there as well. But I would say I was not born to write books. As I said, I'm not the kind of writer, and I thought to myself, well, yeah, I can imagine writing a book with someone else, and you know, we're all coming together and each of us would just put in a chapter, and that feels much easier than writing a whole book myself, right? And I know a lot of people actually always wanted to write a book or share their stories. And the book, at the end of the day, it's a legacy, right? It is something you can be proud of. And believe me, my family is being super proud of me. And, you know, and they see me in a different light now. Like, you know, of course, it was kind of like, seemed to be like a gimmicky type of idea at the very beginning. And even my husband kind of said, well, you're crazy, you know, write a book. I said, well, no, you're a graphic designer. You could actually do all the interior design and the covers and all that, right? So I don't have to go far and beyond to find a big team around me. But of course, I did go out and, you know, looked for a publisher, looked for a copywriter, because at the end of the day, there's a whole process to be considered around that. And often doing this on your own can be tough. And Sam knows this. So Sam specializes in, she's obviously written her own books successfully, and she now helps others write books as well. So I'm just going to bring her onto the screen and unmute as well. Are you there, Sam?
I am, yeah, I just unmuted it actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
So you want to take this from here? So we have.
Yeah, sure. Have we got the different slides?
Yes.
Yeah, so go through the sort of pros and cons. And so, yeah, we'll talk first about the advantages. So I'll just share just a wee bit about myself. 3 years ago, I let go of my first business. It was like a retail business, because I had a little bit like what you've just described, Sabine, but a real calling to share my story. I'd always loved to write anyway, since I was a young girl, but this calling got stronger and stronger. And I acted on it. And my book flooded out of me. So it was my life story, which I wrote very openly, honestly, rawly, authentically, vulnerably. But I actually believe in the more that you can share that part of you, the greater the rewards, the greater the connection to your reader. And it has literally it blew me away of the change and the transformation that it brought to me. Because the visibility side of it, and for me, and it was the human connection, because instantly putting a book out there, a very authentic book, it just created, and for everyone that's in business, one of the hurdles that we all seem to try and overcome before we work with someone is the know, like, and the trust factor. And what I found is that by putting an authentic story out there, that just sort of overcame that hurdle almost instantly. And I like to give a few examples as well. So just literally since I've been on this call today, I've had quite a few sort of website inquiries this week. And I noticed I've just had another email from a lady who said she's read my book, she really related to my story, and she wants to work with me. And that is just what happened, like from the word go. So it attracted clients straight away. And please excuse me, I'm a wee bit croaky at the moment. If my voice, I can hear it going up and down. So we're building the know, like, trust factor. So that was pretty effortless for me. Would you mind? Yeah, that's it. Thank you. And then a lot of people who sort of write books, publish books, they're often in the transformation business as well. So people like speakers, coaches even, therapists, they use a book in this way because I've found out myself how powerful it is. But I think the thing when you're speaking or when you're doing podcasts or sorry, my brain's not working today, but all the other things that we've just talked about, the spoken word, you get a much smaller sort of time spot to relay your story or relay your message or whatever content it is. So for me, a book, every story is in context, and so you get to share the whole story, warts and all, and the context of it, because I always like to know if you hear about say for example an entrepreneur who's like been really, really successful, I'm always really interested in the story before that and what led to that. So I think a book is a perfect platform to see this story.
I think it's also the longevity of this as well, because if you do a Facebook Live, it's probably gone in about an hour. On Twitter, it's even worse. So, you know, it lives for much longer, isn't it? It's an asset.
It does. It's there forever. It's in black and white. It's published. And I think it's actually quite difficult to get a book taken off of Amazon as well, from what I've heard. Oh, really? So you're kind of stuck with it when it's there, but that's a really good thing. It's a really good thing. Yeah, you can say so much more in a book, like we're saying. I always think for a business, whatever business you've got, if you've got a book, whether that's a person's story, whether that's more of what I call a how-to book, say you're completely different type of business, I don't know, car salesman, for example, I don't know why that's coming to my head, but say you're a business like that, I think every business can write a book that is going to attract the business and therefore attract sales. It's going to build the authority, give you more clout in your business, and as we're talking about, the visibility, get you noticed, especially if you've got an online business. And the book is a foundation. It's got so much content packed within that, you know, humble book, that you've got content there for everything you need, really. So you can imagine how many blog posts you could create just from that book alone. It will keep you going for years. If you need to do radio interviews, podcasts, speaking opportunities, when you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, so what am I going to write about on social media today? You can create quotes from your book, you know, and the visuals, and actually literally quote from your book, or use parts of your book as inspiration to write posts, your blog posts. You know, you name it, you've always got that content there, because I think for a lot of people in business, it's having that content and having, with the online business, having to create content all the time is quite a big headache for a lot of people from what I hear. So yeah, your book has it all there. Versatile uses. So a book, I largely help people to create a paperback, an ebook version, so like your Kindle on Amazon. And then also printed copies. So you've got your print on demand paperback, which is like what you'd find on Amazon. So people go on, they order, and then Amazon just sort of print it as and when. Or you can have your own copies all printed, and you can sell those like yourself through your website or social media. Or if you do events and things like that, book signings. Then there's also obviously audio books. Then you can create smaller versions of an ebook if you want to use your content for like a lead magnet purpose. So for anyone that's not sure about that, that's like sort of driving, usually a lead magnet is to drive traffic to your website, or if you want to, say for example, like you see the Facebook ads, you can often download a freebie or a free ebook or a low priced ebook. So you can also use a smaller condensed version of your book or something like that as well.
So for those that ladies, you know, that joined today and they have already got a book, So I guess this could be a great takeaway for them to potentially, create an audiobook. Like, for example, with the first books here, Joy and Rise, that we did. Obviously, we have 50 stories, but I've asked all of the 50 authors to actually read their chapter, and so we had the audiobook. But I'm sure, either you have software. I don't know exactly how to do that, but you could even read your own book and create an audio version and have that as a freebie, as a download, or maybe as even a PDF. So I've got right now a free download available for both books, Joy and Rise, with additional bonuses. And of course, that's behind an email opt-in. So it's
Yeah,
so versatile. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I always think if every business owner really knew and understood what a book can do for you, I think they'd all just rush out and write one. It helps you to grow financially and as a person. So yeah, let's take the person aspect first. So the self-development from writing a book is just been phenomenal. There's a couple of clients of mine that are on this call, and thank you so much for joining. And they're experiencing this themselves at the moment as well. So it's very largely, I always say there's nothing like, this is not to scare people, but there's nothing like a book, I think, for bringing out the imposter syndrome in somebody, or the self-doubts, the self-belief, because there is that fear around visibility for a lot of people. We don't think there's many people that don't have that. However, as we know, on the other side of any fear is the growth. And the self-development from a book has been, speaking from experience, phenomenal. I've seen it in every client I've worked with. And it's very healing as well. It's a very cathartic process, whether that is you sharing your story or writing more of a sort of self-development business book. There's a lot to be learned, and you find out a lot more about you and who you are and how you tick. And I think when you write a story as well, it was fantastic for me to see it all there in black and white, and you can sort of spot patterns in your thinking, in your behavior and things like that. It made it very clear. And then to help grow financially, well, that obviously comes on the back end of how it expands in your business in the ways that we're talking about, that attracts you more clients. Obviously clients are paying to work with you, etc. The self-healing and impact, and helping others. So it's like, I guess it depends on your intention in the first instance of writing your book. So mine was very much about to heal shame about my past. I'd had a lot of trauma as a young person, and whatever I did, I couldn't seem to shift that shame. So my book has really helped me with that, and that has been a big part of the self-development, and I've massively grown as a person. Oh, I see someone just left that in the comments. That's really helpful, as I've just started writing a book about my life. Excellent. Well done, you. And the impact. So it's like that potential to touch and reach, the lives of others. And I talk about when I work with people, to write for one person. Obviously, you're writing for more. To have one sort of real type of person in mind that you really want to help and impact with your book. And when you write in that way, it's like with any type of marketing, you're not diluting your message, and you're getting a clear, succinct message across for your reader. And when you get that feedback that you've helped someone, obviously that's adding on to your self-development, I feel, for a person as well. What else have we got? Legacy and growth. So we touched on the legacy already. So, it's a permanent thing. And sometimes people like to write a book, or they write a book for lots of different reasons. Sometimes it's when people want to share family history, or they're an older person. I've had people get in touch with me who are an older person, so like a grandparent, and they're coming more towards the end of their life, but they want to leave something for their grandchildren, and things can be carried on over the family. So that's a lovely thing to do. But then I think also, if you really are a person of purpose and are wanting to really make a difference in this world, I think it's an amazing thing, because obviously none of us are here forever, but your book, it sounds a bit cliche, but your book will live on, won't it? On Amazon, at least. It'll always be there as long as Amazon exists. And for overcoming limiting beliefs, again, very much because, like I say, those fears of visibility come up for most people. I can remember, like, the day before my first book was published, I rang my mum and I said, God's sake, what have I done? I literally went into this panic state, and I was like, well, just stick with this. It's too late now, she says. And yeah, a few days later, after I'd had those first few reviews, like, huge sigh of relief, and then it's just literally been this incredible journey. So it's really helped me overcome a lot of limited beliefs as well. Publishing a book, we've done that yet, sorry. Stumbling blocks and what to do about it. So yeah, I'll try and give a few examples of these as well. So it seems like a lot of hard work. Absolutely. It's, you only have to look at a book and think, flick through it. It's like, geez, there's a lot of work gone into this book. So, that can put a lot of people off. And maybe scared, again, to share the story and to be visible or judged. Absolutely. Self-doubt about whether your actual writing is good enough, that comes up a lot with people, and it's that fear of judgment creeping back in. Whether they're good enough to be an author, again, that's that imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people will put someone like an author on a bit of a pedestal, because it does seem that, it's a big thing to achieve. The limiting beliefs that do come up, absolutely. And I talk very much about energetically owning your book, because I've worked with people, here's a good example. So I've worked with a lady quite recently. She'd already, she doesn't mind me speaking about this because it's all very open and out there. But she had already written a book, a really, really skillful, knowledgeable book. She's a therapist and a coach, very, very talented. But she wrote this book about 3 years ago, and when it came to it, it's on Amazon, but she could never ever find it in herself to sort of own it and promote it and sell it. So it's just sat there for 3 years doing nothing, and she's beat herself up for 3 years. So she came to me about a year ago and said, Sam, I really am ready to write this book. We started on with one of the programs I've got. And on by the second session, she was in tears, and she was very upset, and she was saying, I can't do this. I've got the same fears sort of coming up again. And what we found is, rather than writing another self-help book, she actually had to go in and write her life story. She had to own that story and really stand in that place of sovereignty. Can never say that word, personal power, I'm going to use that. Stand in that place of personal power and just really own her story fully first. And then she was able to, the shift in her has just been incredible. It's just been magnificent to see. And she's now out there, no problem, selling a book, marketing a book. It's just amazing to see. So yeah, but if you're not able to fully own that book and have, that stand right behind it and able to share it because of fears, then yeah, you're going to have, there's something there that's not aligned. What else? We've got the structure and the process. Yeah, so probably one of the big issues that people have is quite a lot of people if they're very creative, and what I found as well is people who are quite sort of spiritual, and I've worked with quite a lot of sort of spiritual people, that they often have, they find it hard to sort of structure what they want. There's so much they want to say, but it's very hard for them to structure it and to put it into some sort of order. So that's something else that is quite a stumbling block for a lot of people. The accountability, yeah, that's another one. One of the ladies on this call knows all about that. So it's, yeah, big project. It can seem very overwhelming, but obviously I help people to break it down into manageable chunks. I work very much with people in a person-centered way. So we kind of touched on that earlier, and it's like working with people to strengths, not rather than saying, okay, you've got to go away and do such and such in such and such time, working with that person, working with their lifestyle and what's going on. And you know, it's when you actually watch the word count, I get a bit obsessive about this, but watch the word count growing. It's a bit like when you're knitting. That's very encouraging as well. Most people need help to be kept accountable, and just someone to, like, you know, give them a bit of a prod and come on, how are we doing? Let's crack on with it. And then obviously the investment. So, you know, depending on what routes you take to sort of market and everything as well. Obviously there's investment attached to creating, writing a book, unless you literally do it all on your own. And there is some people who do that. You know, there's a lot you can do with Amazon for free, but believe me, even when you know what you're doing, it can be a big headache. And so these are just some of the things. There's quite a few things there that people find it's get in their way, their obstacles. And then the launching and distribution. So another example is a lady I'm working with at the moment. She'd written a book. It's just been proofread and edited. And I've said to her, I said, okay, so have you any idea how you're going to sell this book? How are you going to market it? And she'd given absolutely no thought to that at all. And I think a lot of people think that the book will go onto Amazon, you know, Amazon's this big online platform, and that their book will automatically sell. Very much not. Yeah, Amazon is huge, and your book is just obviously can easily get lost in the sort of ocean of all the other books. So really learning how to launch your book, market your book, promote your book, sell your book is massive. And I always say to people as well, the minute you start to write your book, or even before that, when you're thinking about it, start to market your book. And that doesn't have to be in like a really sort of salesy way. I encourage people very much to sort of like document their journey, share their journey using social media. It's a fantastic tool for a book, absolutely fantastic. Facebook has been incredible for everything that I've done. But yeah, I totally get this launching and distribution bit. Is when I'd written my first book, I had no idea how to turn that, you know, my manuscript, my baby, into a book. So I had to do a lot of research. And I spoke to people who had been self-published authors, people who had also gone through a publishing house, all the different routes to market. I found out all the fors and against, and then I made my sort of decision about how I was going to go forward. And that's how I help people to, you know, get their books out there now as well.
I think that's it. That's the list.
Is that the last one? Yep. Yeah. That's enough stumbling blocks, I think.
Yeah. There are quite a few, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know. But what I would say, I think it's still really worth thinking about having that book, just for an authority and expert kind of statement, very much. And that's the thing, and this is why, you know, we're here for, and this is how we're going to end, to say, well, actually, you know, if you feel it's worthwhile potentially sharing your story, or you want to write a self-help book and get it out there, then obviously there's myself and there's Sam's. I'm just going to show there's Sam's ghostwriter and also mentor and an author. And I'm sure Sam's going to leave her details in the chat for you as well, if you want to get in touch with her and have a conversation.
Sure.
She's helping me now in the upcoming book, which is obviously the third in the series of 4, which I've, you know, been told to go and write. I'm just going to get myself back on the video, right? So obviously my mission is to author another, or let's say co-author another 2 books. So I'm looking for another 50 people. So this is open for men and women this time. And I had this epiphany again through the time, the lockdown, for some reason, because the Joy book literally launched in February 2020. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm just going to take a bit of a rest. And by the way, here, I'll just show you a couple of pages on the inside. It's It's really beautiful. So, you know, everyone has, all the authors actually have a page, and they can put their website link in there as well. So that's a really, really great marketing tool. So that's another thing, is if you have your own book, make sure people have some sort of way to get in touch with you, or they can opt in somewhere as well. But yeah, I thought, well, maybe I'll take a little bit of a break and see what comes, because it's almost like wading through the I guess through the fog a little bit to see, you know, what comes up next, because I haven't planned the 4 books. I didn't know really what I was going to write. It just leads me one step to the next. And it became very, very clear during lockdown that, holy moly, we are absolutely going through a massive global shift. And I know a new era is going to begin. And that is my next book collaboration. Planning to launch this early next year. So I'm looking for, there's already a few women that helped on. Each of them are going to write 1 chapter. So it's much easier. It's not like you have to go and write your whole book yourself and do the publishing. Everything's kind of done with you, for you, the whole process. We've done it twice now. My husband's gladly, you know, been able to do all the designs, and he's starting to enjoy it more and more. And so we've just put together a bit of a visual as to kind of what sort of theme we're looking at. And I'm sure this is all going to be about superheroes and about sharing those kind of stories. But it could be also stories of yourself, you know, any changes that you may have gone through even before lockdown. But definitely maybe a new era that had started for you. So if you want to know more about this book collaboration, I'm actually holding information sessions. There happens to be one right after this session if you want to stay on. Otherwise, just message me. That's really the end of this presentation. I'd like to thank everyone. If you have any questions, we can take those now.